Nothing. Is that
Now
better?
we're good. Yes, Becky. Thank you so much. All right. Welcome all of you to our webinar on dementia care. I'm Komal, and on behalf of the entire team at Tuktu, I extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you. We are delighted to have you join us today. My name is Komal, and I'm one of the founding team members of Tuktu Care. And as you know, Tuktu is a community powered care provider that matches seniors and family caregivers with trusted people in the community for errands, chores, and genuine companionship. Most of you who have joined us today are associated with Tuktu either as a customer or a caregiver, a partner, or Tuktu provider, and I'm feeling extremely grateful for having such an amazing and thriving community. At Tuktu, our mission is to foster aging in place and to reduce social isolation and to empower seniors and family caregivers with resources, tools to lead this journey with ease and peace of mind. And that is why we started this webinar series. And the inspiration came from one of our customers itself. With the first of many being led today by Diane. Welcome, Diane, and thank you so much for leading this empowering webinar for all of us. Diane, do you want to say a quick hi, Diane, so that people know it's you?
I'm waving my hand and I'm saying hello. So nice to have you join us today.
Thank you, Dan. I'll just give a little introduction of Diane so that you all know. Diane is a passionate advocate for dementia care with over, I'll just quickly let people in. There are 4 people waiting. There we go. I want everybody to hear about our lovely Diane today. So Diane is, as I said, Diane is a passionate advocate for dementia care with over 20 years of experience in working with seniors in the community, assisted living, long-term care settings. She brings a plethora of knowledge to her work. She is a certified facilitator in gentle persuasion approach and serves as an informal coach for dementia support at her workplace. She is also a certified fitness instructor through BCRPA, specializing in older adult fitness. Throughout her adult life, Diane has dedicated herself to volunteerism, including roles with hospice, senior societies, and facilitating programs for University of Victoria's self-management, BC chronic pain and chronic conditions. Interestingly, her educational background includes business management and entrepreneurial leadership. And as a community advocate and project leader, this is very interesting. She's actively involved in creating a welcoming and inclusive dementia neighborhood project, and currently she's also spearheading the initiative to develop a dementia-friendly neighborhood, promoting a supportive environment for individuals with dementia. And that is why she's the best person to let us know that how can we create, a community that is friendly and welcoming for people with dementia. So I now pass on the stage to Diane, and I welcome again all of you. I still hear somebody with that background noise of TV. Um, thank you. Thank you so much. So, Diane, there you go. We have 24 amazing people here today. I'm so happy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your kind introduction, Kamel, and thank you for Tuktu for hosting the webinar to share knowledge and resources. And that's why we're here today, to learn and hear and share and carry on those conversations with people outside of this webinar today. So before I share my presentation, I just want to acknowledge that I'm presenting from the unceded and unsurrendered land of the Hokomalam speaking people. So this is in the city of New Westminster, British Columbia, and I live in Queensborough, which is part of the island that is in the middle of the Fraser River. So I do feel very blessed to be presenting from this location at this time. So I'm going to share my presentation, and I'm at a bit of a disadvantage. I won't see your faces at this time or be able to read the chat. So if there's anything concerning, I'll have Kamel speak to me or us, just to bring my attention to that. So I will be at this time sharing a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. And I'm sharing the sound so that we will have that as we go through it. And right now, everyone should be seeing the title page called Share, Learn, and Expand Your Knowledge About Dementia. And Kamel, if you could just give me a verbal if that's the case.
Yes, then we're there. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So this whole presentation is really about balancing the heart and the mind. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more, but learning and sharing, learning and responding. So I just want to give you a really, really warm welcome. And I want to share a little bit about this idea of growth mindset and spreading the seeds of knowledge. So I was walking along the Fraser River not too long ago, and I was really struck about how beautiful nature was. And I started taking pictures of nature, the river, different plants, and I was just having some fun with it. And what quite struck me was the ordinary dandelion. And when I was taking pictures, I was thinking this dandelion's not so ordinary. It is actually really beautiful and extraordinary. And so some of the dandelion pictures were the yellow dandelion in full bloom, just bright and brilliant with the sun showing on it. And then there was another one that was fully seeded, a big white puffball that just looked amazing as I took close-up pictures of it. And then the third picture I took was the dandelion where half the seeds probably went to your neighbor's yard. I don't know. and people might not be happy with dandelions in their lawn. But when I was taking the picture, it made me think of today. That we are all very ordinary people, but we can do just such amazing and extraordinary things. And that idea of spreading the seeds of knowledge, this is what I hope your takeaway is at the end of this webinar, is that maybe there's a teeny tiny little seed of information that you've learned, or maybe you already know some information that you share that with other people in your lives. So Kamel did an excellent job of introducing me already, so I won't repeat that, but I just want to touch on the part of the community advocate part. So things we do have an influence, and things we do might be very small, but they still can have that ripple effect and have that influence. So my project this year that I've kind of embraced is getting a small grant in order to really spread that idea of how can we be a dementia-friendly neighborhood. So I didn't say city or province or country. I just kept it very small to my local neighborhood. And in that process, I was able to talk to some of the managers with the city of New Westminster, and I was talking to the library. And the library was just wonderful in jumping on board, and they supported creating a brochure and a small bookmark with resources from the library that relate to dementia. And so it was just such a small action, but it just felt so supportive to know that the library felt that this topic was important and that they wanted to share their resources, and I'll be able to share that with my community. So small things can lead to big actions, and I'm excited about that. For today, what we're just going to touch on very briefly is the overview of dementia and diseases that lead to dementia. We're going to talk a bit about person-centered approach. We're going to get practical. What are some tips, tools, and techniques that we can use either in our workplace, in our home, if we're a Tuktu caregiver with the people that we meet? So let's get really practical on that part. And then that idea that I touched upon with the, the reflect and learn and share that experiences that you already have, because we all have experiences. We all have experiences. We have different resources, maybe in our professional work, maybe more personal with our spouse or parent or loved one, someone in our family, a neighbor maybe. So we all have knowledge. We have knowledge of the people that we're concerned about, and we have different knowledge together as a group about dementia and what that means. So living the experience. So the for the first 20 years of my life, you know, you're young, you're growing up, you're in high school. I heard about Alzheimer's, maybe not so much the word dementia at that time, but I didn't have any personal experience with it. I didn't have a grandparent that had Alzheimer's that led to dementia. I didn't have neighbors, or if I did, I wasn't aware. So it's kind of really a vague and abstract understanding of the topic. Fast forward a little bit, and I had my first job working in Edmonton as a nursing assistant. And I remember this was a retirement home, so people were quite independent. It's probably what you'd call assisted living here at this time, but it was a retirement home. And I remember one gentleman in the summer, I would quite often take him out for walks. And I believe it was Alzheimer's that he had. His short-term memory was very short. And I just remember the protocol at that time, and I'm talking about decades ago, the protocol at that time was if there was agitation, then it could be resolved with Ativan. And so I associated dementia, Alzheimer's a little bit with agitation and using medication to support that person. I know now, many decades later, there's so many different tools and techniques that we can use to really support a person and not be using medication if it's not needed. Another example of work, fast forward a couple of decades. This is when I was working in BC, and I was working in assisted living. And so the lady living beside my office, she had very short-term memory, but she was so enthusiastic. She had lots of energy. She was mobile, and she participated in all the different programs that I offered at the location. And she was very excited about participating, enthusiastic. She always said yes. She wanted to be busy. And I just really enjoyed that about having her present in my programs. I remember particularly one program was an art project, and we were painting on canvas. And so I asked her to write her name on the canvas before she did the project. And as she was in the activity, she painted, and she was drawing on this canvas with paint. And it was finishing up, and we're almost at the end of the project. And so I went back to her, and I really complimented her on her colors and her style, and that I enjoyed it. And it was so nice to see her painting this picture. Well, what's interesting is she didn't connect this picture with herself. She said, "Oh, no, that's not me," or "I didn't do that painting." And so I said, well, yes, actually, you wrote your name on the canvas. That's your name, and this is what we've been doing. And so again, I could see she wasn't connecting her name to the artwork that she had just finished. And I realized, wow, memory can be tricky to understand, because I realized at that point that my idea of a quick fix didn't work. And by pointing out or showing her and recalling the activity didn't mean she could connect all those pieces and embrace it as her own experience. I have another story. This is about a daughter. This is a daughter several years ago that her mother, who was in the mid-80s, was living independently in her apartment in Victoria. And her daughter really wanted her to be able to interact with her grandchildren. So the daughter thought, if I buy her a new cell phone and teach her how to share photos and do video calls, then she'll really be involved in her grandchildren's lives. And so the daughter would go to her mom, she'd visit, she had the cell, they would go through a little tutorial. The daughter would show maybe 3 steps that were needed in order to share a picture or view a picture. And then ask her mom to repeat what she just learned, just to make sure that the daughter would know that her mom could operate the cell phone. And when she asked her mom to repeat the actions, her mom wasn't able to. And so it started becoming really frustrating for this daughter. And what seemed so simple became a source of tension. So this older lady was actually my mother, and the daughter was my sister. And you know, hindsight is helpful because when you're in the midst of something, you don't see the full picture. And even hindsight, you don't see the full picture. But it does give you a better view, and you kind of can see maybe where little things are happening here and there that indicate maybe some short-term memory is going. Now, dementia can be much more than just memory loss. So where does one start? Well, just share a little bit about my journey. And this is mostly related to my journey with my mom. So I remember several years ago, I was on the farm in Saskatchewan. That's where my mom lives during the summertime. And what she likes to do is come to BC in the wintertime. So we were visiting my mom, I remember, on the farm in the living room. I was with my husband and I was with several of my siblings because I'm actually the youngest of seven children. So there was a handful of us there together, and my mom was having the conversation, or we were having the conversation with my mom about if she moves back to Victoria, or when she moves back to Victoria, what would she think about with having extra help? So my mom didn't feel like she needed help. She didn't think it was necessary. She felt she could eat, she could prepare her food, she could take care of her personal needs. She was still mobile, she could walk. And we agreed. We recognized that, yes, this is all the things that my mom can do. We also agreed that perhaps if she wants to continue her independence living in BC, that just having a little bit of extra support would help her live independently for longer. And so my husband jumped in and said, okay, well, I'll do all the research and send it to your siblings. And then when I got back to BC, I jumped in and took as many courses as I could related to dementia. And there's so many amazing resources online that I'll share at the end of the webinar today. But I was taking all primarily free courses, some from the University of Tasmania, some Canadian, all sorts of resources. And I was kind of going in high gear about how can I really prepare for my mom to return to BC and encourage her to live as independently as possible with a little bit of support. So this is where I found out about Tuktu. And I was so excited about it because my mom was coming to Vancouver Island in the fall, and Tuktu was going to be expanding to the island. And I was waiting for my mom to come, and I was waiting for Tuktu to expand their services. And from all the research that my husband did and the information I had, it just seemed that Tuktu really was the service that would best support my mom without being over-serviced. So my mom didn't see the need. So how did we as a family to respond to that? You know, it's not okay for us just to say, well, we're worried about you, and so we're going to bring someone in 3 hours a day, 5 days a week into her own private home. So we were really excited about Tuktu and really felt that for my mom, it was a nice feeling to have someone come in as a companion and visit her as a neighbor, as someone in the community, someone that she could have conversations, because my mom is very social. And so it's not that she doesn't want to socialize with people. It's just that she might not want them. She didn't feel ready for someone to be making her meals or doing her laundry or doing some of those other daily active things. So dementia is not a disease. And the people here today might already know that, but there's a lot of people in the community that don't know that dementia is an umbrella term used to describe a range of symptoms associated with cognitive impairment. And this is a very simplified visual, but you can see that Alzheimer's presents the largest proportion of the disease that leads to dementia. Yeah, vascular, Lewy body, frontal temporal. You won't see here, but there's other diseases such as Parkinson's that would also fit, stroke. So my mom was diagnosed with mixed dementia. So with mixed dementia, it's a bit of a blend between Alzheimer's and vascular. So let's look a little bit about what's normal for aging. And what are some clues or hints that maybe it's more different than normal aging? So if you look at normal aging, might be not being able to remember details of a conversation or event that took place a year ago. So you and I may have that experience. For someone that's might have a disease that leads to dementia, maybe they're not able to recall details of recent events or conversations. Or how about you and I not being able to remember the name of an acquaintance? Or maybe we remember a little bit later. Someone that might have signs of dementia, they might not recognize or know the names of family members. Normal aging might be forgetting things and events occasionally. With dementia, it's more frequent and obvious. Normal aging might be that the person is experiencing these symptoms may be worried about their memory. However, the relatives are not so worried. Where in my family situation, it was my siblings, it was my family that was worried about my mom. And my mom that was not aware that her short-term memory was starting to go. So how about this, losing things from time to time? We all do that. With dementia, maybe misplacing things and being unable to retrace steps to find them. So think of this scenario. Sometimes you're doing something in one room and you think, oh, I need something different from the other room. Maybe I need some scissors. Maybe I need a pen. So you walk into the other room and you forget what it is you needed. And it's like, why am I here in this room? And for me, quite often it works. If I go back to the original room, I'm like, oh yes, I needed a pen. And then I go back and get the pen and carry on with my activity. Someone with dementia might start out the same. They might leave one room thinking I need a pen. They might go to the kitchen or office to get a pen. They get there, they can't remember what is it that I need from this room. And then instead of retracing their steps, they might just go sit on a chair and turn the TV on and do something different, completely forgetting that they were actually in the midst of doing something in the first room. Another clue might be for normal aging, occasionally difficulty finding words, where dementia, there might be frequent pauses and substitutions when finding words. So if someone had dinner yesterday, had a meal with friends or families or relatives, they might not remember the name of the restaurant, or if it was in the person's house, they might remember that they had a meal and ate together, but they're not able to identify if it was a restaurant, cafe, someone's home. And the last example, there's many, but the last one I'm choosing to share today is financially maybe missing a monthly payment, where someone with dementia might actually, as it progresses, have that inability to manage a budget. And so they're going to need support. I want to share this image a little bit with you. I'm sharing this image because it might be familiar to you, especially if you knew someone that had a stroke. So my dad had a stroke years ago. And at that time, it was the idea about the left brain and the right brain, the left brain being very logical, analytical, very detailed, the right brain being more creative, artistic. So depending where the stroke was, what side of the brain is what kind of indicated what function they did well in, or what function maybe was a little bit more difficult. Now, I recognize that this is a bit outdated. I just wanted you to see something maybe familiar. I'm going to be showing you a video, and this video is from the Alzheimer's Society, and it's called Alzheimer's and the Brain. And we did test it out, so the volume should be okay for hearing, but this is more current, and you can really see a little bit more detail about the brain. So let's take a look at this.
In healthy people, all sensations, movements, thoughts, memories, and feelings are the result of signals that pass through billions of nerve cells or neurons in the brain. Neurons constantly communicate with each other through electrical charges that travel down axons, causing the release of chemicals across tiny gaps to neighboring neurons. Other cells in the brain, such as astrocytes and microglia, clear away debris and help keep neurons healthy. In a person with Alzheimer's disease, the most basic form of dementia, toxic changes in the brain destroy this healthy balance. These changes may occur years, even decades, before the first signs of dementia. Researchers believe that this process involves two proteins, called beta amyloid and tau, which somehow become toxic to the brain. It appears that abnormal tau accumulates, eventually forming tangles inside neurons. And beta amyloid clumps into plaques, which slowly build up between neurons. As the level of amyloid reaches a tipping point, there is a rapid spread of tau throughout the brain. But tau and beta amyloid may not be the only factors involved in Alzheimer's. Other changes that affect the brain may also play a role over time. The vascular system may fail to deliver sufficient blood and nutrients to the brain. The brain may lack the glucose needed to power its activity. Chronic inflammation sets in as microglial cells fail to clear away debris, and astrocytes react to distressed microglia. Eventually, neurons lose their ability to communicate. As neurons die, the brain shrinks, beginning in the hippocampus, a part of the brain important to learning and memory. People may begin to experience memory loss, impaired decision-making, and language problems. As more neurons die throughout the brain, a person with Alzheimer's gradually loses the ability to think, remember, make decisions, and function independently. Achieving a deeper understanding of the molecular.
So the brain is complex, but we also know that the brain is amazing with the neuroplasticity. And so different parts of the brains can compensate at some times. I want to share some of the losses one might experience with dementia. So loss of memory, this could be known as amnesia. So it stores limited amount of information for a short period of time. So it might be difficult to learn new things or create new memories. People in this category might live in the moment, but access information from the past. So a little tip for this is to obtain clues about the place and the time that the person is remembering and adjust your care accordingly. Loss of language. This is called aphasia, and people might have difficulty expressing verbally or understanding what is said, reading and writing. So you might have communication breakdown, might be frequent, and it might be frustrating. So a tip for this might be using visual prompts and communication cards. Loss of recognition, agnosia. So this might be one of your senses, some of your senses, or many of your senses. So they might not recognize objects they hear or smell. They might not recognize faces. They might not recognize food or drink that's in front of them. They might mix up their child with their sibling. So a tip for this is demonstrate with gestures, introduce yourself with your voice, because maybe they don't recognize your face. They might recognize your voice. With food, you might want to just ensure that everything is simplified and they just have one thing on their plate at a time. The next one, loss of purposeful movement. So this is called apraxia. And the muscles may still have the ability, but the brain is not effective in sending signals. So they might be holding a brush in their hand, but they might not continue that movement to brush their hair. They might look at something and say, what do I do with this? So some tips for this again are simplified tasks, doing one thing at a time, showing a person. So if you have a hairbrush and they're brushing their hair, you can both do it at the same time. Very small little tips that might be helpful. Environmental perception. So this is where things are altered for the person with dementia. So it impacts the way the information is interpreted, might be distorted. They might have trouble with spatial relationships. So for this, you want to really step into the person's shoes. What are they experiencing? So be aware of everything around the person. If you have a washing machine in the background that's running, does that sound like a washing machine to the person? Or is he thinking that there's a plane flying too close to the house and gets nervous? Or if they hear a dog barking outside, do they think it's something inside? So if you're a family member, you have a bit of an advantage because you might have a sense for the history of the person. But if you're not a family member or friend, you might have to really investigate like a detective and really kind of consider, okay, what are all the things in my environment that are happening right now, visually, audible, what are those things? The loss of ability to initiate. So this could look like apathy or called apathy. It might look indifferent. So someone's sitting in a chair and not engaging. So for this person, you need to be the person that is welcoming, guiding, initiating, interacting. They need your support to move forward. Loss of self-awareness. So this is called anosognosia, meaning no A meaning no, gnosis meaning illness, and nausea, knowledge. So no knowledge of their illness. So when I learned about this one, it really clicked with me that I feel this is probably the biggest loss for my mom, that she's not aware of an illness that's progressing. So for this, you really want to support a person in their personal routines. What have they done all their life routine? What's regular? So that you can support them in what they know of their daily needs. And the other tip is to avoid arguing and be creative. So it's not helpful for me to tell my mom that, oh, your short-term memory is going, we need to do this, because she's going to deny that. It's not going to be something that she's going to agree with. So the reason I share about these losses is not to focus on the losses. It's to have an understanding of what you might be experiencing with the people in your life or for you yourself, and put words to it. So we want to really understand, we need to understand a little bit with our mind, some of the science, what's happening in the brain, some of the losses, what's happening in the brain. And in that way, we're going to be able to respond with our heart. And I just want to share a few quick stories about my work and what I do, because I do a lot of sensory stimulation. So when I was talking about giving Ativan decades ago, now it looks different. Now it's not giving Ativan, it's trying the best I can to engage people in gardening, in activities, in artwork. So things that bring joy to my heart are hearing a resident say thank you in English when their language is Farsi, after I've put a video on about reptiles and snakes on YouTube for them to watch. I know this would bring joy to the resident because his son shared that with me. Or I observed someone that does a lot of coloring with pencil crayons. And if I ask them, oh, would you like me to sharpen your pencil crayons today? And seeing the smile light up on that person's face, even though they're nonverbal. Another one is maybe a verbal affirmation about someone enjoying flowers at their table because it reminds them of home where they grew up. So if you're a family member or supporting someone in your neighborhood or friend, be sure to share some little tips and ideas and histories if a caregiver is coming into your home or supporting a person with dementia, because all those little tips really help a caregiver to make the right connections for the person. I wanted to share a quote here, and this is an excellent resource. It's from the World Health Organization Toolkit for Dementia-Friendly Initiatives. And it talks about creating a supportive environment, helps to put the emphasis on the person rather than the disability and impairment, and are central to combating stigma. So what can we do in the environment? So there's lots of things actually, and things like lighting. So think of Saskatchewan in the winter at 4 p.m. It's dark outside. Well, what would happen if someone saw it was dark outside and went to bed at 4 p.m.? Well, they might sleep till midnight. Then what's going to happen? They're going to wake up. And that's going to be difficult for the caregiver or people living in the same place as them. So there's so many options for lighting, dimmer switchers, automatic lighting, different types of lighting, daylight lighting and evening. There's lots of resources we could look at lighting. Contrast, you want to look at contrast. So if there's potatoes or rice on a plate, on a white plate, there's no contrast. They might not visually be able to see the food. You want to have pictures maybe as cues. So if there's a light switch that's white on a white wall, you know, are they going to see that light switch to be able to turn it on? Maybe a picture on top of the light switch with a light bulb. maybe even the word saying light switch. You want to access as many senses and resources as possible. I also wanted to talk about what's familiar. So imagine someone walking along the Fraser River. It's a beautiful summer day. Maybe it's an older person. They didn't bring a water bottle. The sun is warm. They've walked for quite a while and they're getting tired. Well, they might see this park bench and think, I'm tired. I'm going to sit down and have a rest. The picture on the right is something I love. It's actually a bus stop. And I love it because it's creative, it's artistic, it's different. It's here in Queensborough in New Westminster. But imagine that same person being hot, tired, thirsty, and seeing this structure. Are they going to recognize it for somewheres that they can sit and rest? Is it something that they can engage in if their short-term memory is gone? Maybe they're living a decade or two past at that moment and are looking for a traditional park bench. Here's another example. So imagine someone that used to have a house and a backyard. Maybe they had a garden, they got their hands dirty. So this is something that might be familiar to them. Well, now there's also the option of having a moss peat puck where you add water, it expands, and you can put a seed in there. Is that something they're going to recognize as dirt? Could a peat puck look like something else, perhaps a 2-bite brownie? So you have to think of, what's in our lives current today that might be recognizable and what's new and different. So this is all about environment. So communication, this is not new for you. We try to get a person's attention when we're talking, make eye contact, maybe find a quieter place. The point I want to bring is the last one about using closed-ended questions, yes or no answers. So that might look a little bit different, might be something that a language we don't use with our family members, but with someone with dementia, where you want to engage them in making a choice. So you're not going to say, do you want potatoes or rice? You're going to say, do you want potatoes? And give them an opportunity to say yes or no. And depending on that answer, then you move on with the second option. Allow time for responses. Response to feelings, not stories. Connect, don't correct. And repeat or try again later. Allow time for responses. I see this at my work sometimes, for example, doing an activity with bingo and just moving ahead from calling one number to the next. And it makes it definitely difficult for people with dementia to follow along and participate. So while the world waits for a cure for dementia, we need more communities and cities to embrace those living with dementia instead of isolating and excluding them. I've touched on most of these points already in my presentation. Dementia is not a disease. There's diseases that lead to dementia. Dementia, this is a myth. Dementia diagnosed spells the end of a meaningful existence. Well, no, there's always the relationship that we have with people. And the third and fourth, I'll combine together, that dementia is untreatable and progressive, or you can't prevent dementia. And there's some excellent resources about these topics. But there's two things that we can't change. That's our age and our genetics. But there are some different modifications that we can make. And I want you to think about a healthy heart equals a healthy brain. So when you think of all those good things you do for your heart, that will also support your brain. So exercise, healthy eating, relationships, conversations, learning. So in everything that we do, there's an event plus our reaction, which will create an outcome. And I'm running out of time. So I just want you to know that if the event is someone we know with dementia, what is our reaction? What have we learned today, or how are we going to increase our knowledge to change an outcome for a person? So questions are, what is one step you can take to increase your understanding? Or what is one step you can take to make it a good day or a good moment for a family member or friend? So the Global Dementia Action Plan's vision, so this is a vision, a world in which dementia is prevented. But more importantly, people with dementia and their carers live well and receive the care and support that they need to fulfill their potential with dignity, respect, autonomy, and equality. So this is an opportunity for me to come out of the presentation for a moment and just hear maybe if people would like to share a reflection or an insight, so that it reinforces what you already know, or listening to other people will connect us on a deeper level. So I'm ending my slideshow here and going to stop sharing. Okay, Kamel, can you see that
Yes,
I stopped sharing?
yes, you did. Thank you so much, Dan. That was so engaging. That was so empowering. So many wonderful tips and tools on how to empower and how to support our loved ones. I now open the floor to questions. I see some of you were thoroughly enjoying and taking the notes. Please ask your questions to Diane, and we try our best to answer them.
Or an insight or a aha moment?
Please feel free to share any of your personal stories as well. Anything that you have that you've experienced in your own personal life, or with a neighbor, or with somebody in your community, to help relate more and share. All yours.
Andrew?
I just have a question. Like, so if someone is starting to have memory loss and so on, so do you like how do you go about determining whether they have Alzheimer's or is it just dementia, or like is it easy to diagnose by a doctor, or is this like a long process before they finally decide or determine that it's Alzheimer's or?
Yes, I think the best resources is the doctor. So if they're looking at cognitive function, they might be asking some short questions to see about cognitive function, about short-term memory. I don't know about diagnosis for Alzheimer's specifically. I don't know if there's anyone else in the group that might have a little bit more understanding of that. But there are different tests that doctors can do on a quick short. And I think there might be progress in understanding with more thorough blood work, depending on what disease leads to dementia, right? Because there's all the variety of diseases that lead to dementia. So they're not going to be diagnosed with dementia per se.
Okay. All right.
Does someone else in
Diane?
the group have an addition to that?
I think Kim has a question. Yes.
When my mother started experiencing very bad problems with short-term memory, when we went to the gerontologist, they did a whole bunch of tests and, you know, blood work and all that stuff. But what they explained to us, my mom and I, is that one way that you can tell the difference between, let's say, vascular dementia, which is what she had, and Alzheimer's is the way people lose their memories, like what they forget. Like if you can still make connections, but you can't remember what, let's say one of the tests was you look at 5 things on a tray that are all kind of related, and then they cover it up and they say, okay, write down the 5 things on the tray. Now, because they're connected, if it's a vascular dementia, you can still have problems remembering, but with a few cues to what they're related to, they can remember more easily. Whereas with Alzheimer's, it's completely, it doesn't make any sense to them, right? They can't make the connection, so they can't, even giving them little cues can't help. I don't know, that's just what they told my mother. So, I mean, so sorry, that's just my experience.
No, thank you for sharing, because I think everyone is on a unique journey. And unfortunately, Andrew, there's not a cut and dry answer to that. Depends on your doctor and your resources and the experience.
Diane?
Yes.
Hi, sorry, not on camera, it's Anne. I have a question about whether you know if persons with mental health issues have a higher incidence or risk of dementia. And yeah.
It is a risk factor. It's that umbrella I showed about dementia. On some more detailed graphs, they do have mental health under that umbrella as well.
Okay. I assume it's just the nature of the mental health issue itself, and then maybe poor nutrition and things like that then, or?
There could be modifiable risk factors. And there's lots of great resources that I'll share with you without giving you a clear answer, because I don't have a clear answer for that.
Okay, thank you.
Diane, may I ask you something about a person that I was taking care of?
Yes.
She was being quite abusive, quite rude, frustrated, and swearing and calling people names. How would you deal with that?
Yes, so the different dementias, there's definitely one of the diseases that lead to dementia that sounds like you're describing, where the behavior is very difficult and the swearing. Like in some situations, it might be an option to use medication, but the idea is that we're here to support people as much as possible. And if there's abuse or hitting, what we like to think about is there's a need that's not being met. We need to protect ourselves and the people around. But what is it that they're frustrated about or angry about? And is there anything in the environment that can be changed to support a person? And there might be some things that could be changed in our response, in the environment. It's a bit like detective work. You're gonna have to do as much as possible, talk to the family as much as possible, see what the triggers are, if there's triggers, but definitely there's, depending where in the brain the damage is happening, it presents differently.
Okay, thank you.
Crystal?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I've heard the term sundowning. Is that something that does occur, or
Yes.
exactly what is that?
Yes, it's a transition. It's the transition period. So it's transitioning quite often in the late evening, moving into the dinner period, where there might be more pacing or agitation, or what our other member had talked about, abuse or maybe violence, like things that are happening that might have been okay earlier on in the day. So some of the solutions for sundowning is kind of being really aware of the lighting. So I mean, Northern Canada is where I'm living, so there's such a difference from the different seasons, and so the lighting really changes. So if we are able to manipulate the environment so that it appears to be daytime longer, and then you have your nighttime, you might be able to reduce the effects of sundowning.
Thank you.
Maybe one more share. Do we have time, Camille, for one more sharing?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, if not, I'll use the last minute to share my screen again. And just very briefly, there's so many amazing resources, like absolutely fantastic. You could spend many hours of your day, like I have, learning and researching. These are some of the ones that I personally would like to share with you today.
Diane,
Yes?
sorry to interrupt. I just had one question while you were, if that's okay, if I may ask that.
Yes.
While you were, going through your own journey as a family caregiver with your mom, when you recognized in hindsight that this was what was going on, and I'm sure you and your siblings must have felt that there is going to be a role reversal with your mom, with your um, parents taking care of you the whole life, and now you will need to make sure that they're okay, and coming up with such support system. How did you break in that conversation with your mom about that whole role reversal thing, making sure that she's okay and she doesn't feel that her independence is being taken away?
Yeah, I don't know, like it's all sorts of small little conversations throughout. I mean, I think the biggest conversation was the one that I shared, where we said if she wants to live independently, it's important to have a little bit of support. And the way I always described it to my mom was a safety net, and saying, yes, your children are your safety net, and we are here, and we're fortunate that there's 7 kids, and some live in British Columbia, some live in Saskatchewan, one in Alberta, but we're not always there. So we need to add to your safety net. And so we need to have someone like Tuktu be part of that safety net, so that if you need help and the kids aren't around, then you still have that support to live independently. Now, because she's not going to recognize that she needs help, I'm not going to argue with her at this point, saying, mom, let us take care of you. It's going to be just really trying to be sensitive to her need for independence. I know the conversations aren't over, and I know the heartache is not over, because as she ages, maybe not as mobile, less cognitive function, there's going to be more conversations that'll have to happen. But will she be able to connect the dots and understand why? Maybe sometimes she will and sometimes she won't.
Thank you, Dan. That is beautiful.
All right. Quickly just share this last page with you, which is some resources that I've been using. Kamel, can you see that?
Yes, Anne, we can see your resources page.
Okay. So I've already mentioned about the public library. So New Westminster has created a book list, and probably anyone's library could do that for you. I love the WHO toolkit. There's lots of tangible resources. I'm gonna, if you look at the MOOC, Wiccan Dementia Research and Education Center, that's from the University of Tasmania in Australia. So this was one of the first courses I took. So one was about understanding dementia. The other one was about preventing dementia. And like I said, with the preventing, you're not going to prevent the aging process or genetics, but looking at what are some other things that a person can do. This next one, kind of Stego Cradle, also a free resource. I just love this one. It's from Ontario, it's Canadian, but it's a very person-centered based. So it just talks about all sorts of scenarios. I think there's 12 different stories. And so for one person, they might talk about food. For another person, they might talk about end of life. For another person, they might talk about living in a rural Canadian farm. And so it's a really nice one to look at. Alzheimer's Society, you have your provincial, you have your national, so many resources. Definitely, if you like to research, you can look at Googling some of that. Teepa Snow is from the United States. She has lots of YouTube videos that are very helpful in behavior. So when someone was talking about aggression or violence, you might be able to find something from Teepa Snow in relation to that. Also, if you're a caregiver, there's the caregiver support groups that are really wonderful resources so that you can keep healthy in your energy. And then there's also some groups on Facebook, like the Alzheimer's and Dementia Support Group. But I have to say, some of these groups, you have very raw emotions from people because people are struggling to support someone in their life. And so, it's just the knowledge of the community that's being shared in those situations. But lots of resources, and there's more, of course. These are just the ones that I'm more familiar with for sharing with you today. So
thank you, Dan.
Thank you, everyone that's participated today, Kamel and Tuktu, for launching this first webinar for the series.
Of course. And we would love to hear from all of you. If there's anything else, maybe there's a deeper dive into any one of the topics that you would want us to take up in our webinar series. And because this is a webinar, this will be taking place once a month, and you'll be hearing more from us. And please feel free to connect with me. Tell me what more do you want to learn about? What kind of expert opinions do you want? So thank you all. And I also wanted to share an interesting resource that we have developed, and we'll be sending you more information on that. It's our comprehensive and free 5-day email course, which is an age-in-place roadmap. It is specifically designed to empower you and your loved ones, and this is packed with valuable insights, practical advice, and tailored strategies to support successful aging in place. I'll just share my screen for a bit, probably half a minute, not more than that. And I'll just quickly show you what does it look like. I will be sending you an email. If you can see my screen, this is where you sign up for the email course. And this is what you can expect, which is roadmap to independent living. Day 2 will be your social prescription, which is how to cultivate social connections for physical and mental well-being. Day 3 would be independent living made easier with tools and resources. Day 4 will be interesting with tech navigation, with setting up yourself at your home or setting up your loved ones with the right technology to make their life easier. And Day 5 will be ending with connecting with compassion. So I would love to see you all sign up for this. And this is written by Suzanne Hansen, who's the author and an age tech expert from Texas. Her home country is Denmark, and she's now residing in Texas. And she's a family caregiver herself, caring for her mother-in-law. So amazing, amazing person. And we've written this with a lot of love, a lot of gratitude for all of you that you're in our lives. And again, I extend on behalf of the entire team of Tuktu, I say thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope that the knowledge and insights that were shared during the webinar has been valuable to you. And our aim will always be to support you, to provide you with practical strategies, resources, and inspiration to help you navigate the challenges of caring for your loved ones with dementia. And please remember, in the end, you're not alone in this journey. We're here to uplift and empower each other, and we encourage you to stay connected, share your experience, and reach out just whenever you feel so. And thank you, Diane. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care, everyone. And we'll be sharing these resources with you over the email.
Thank you.
Bye.